Welcome back. So if you remember, a long story short, Antipas married Herodias, who was the wife of Philip. So he just basically took his wife away from him. However, she's the one I think that really wanted it. And by the way, Philip II, this is Philip I. Philip II actually came from Cleopatra. Not the Queen Cleopatra, but they named her after, or she was named after that famous queen in the past. But anyway, John the Baptist spoke against this. And so what happened is Herod Antipas took John the Baptist and put him into Machaerus, into prison. And so now he wanted to kill him, but he also didn't. This is a really interesting, really fascinating story. He was mixed. He had mixed emotions. He wanted to kill him. He didn't want to. He wanted to kill him, but he also didn't want to. He had mixed emotions because he was kind of like, he's speaking against me. And Herodias definitely wanted to kill him, but he feared the crowd. He didn't want to put him in. Well, I don't think the real reality was more like he wanted to kill him for Herodias' sake, because she was, I think, trying to get him all the time. You're the king, or you're the tetrarch. Why aren't you taking him out? Why aren't you killing him? Well, you're wimpy, you're weak. Who knows what she was saying to him? And he said, no, I'm not going to, because he feared the multitudes. The multitudes, he believed that, and that's true, a lot of the people believed that he was a prophet of God. Now, we have Matthew, Mark, Luke. John doesn't mention him much. He mentions him in the beginning. But the story of his death is really in Matthew and Mark, really similar. A lot of stuff. When we get to Mark, we'll find more stuff there. And so finally an opportunity came where he was going to get him. Now remember, Herod the Great heard about Jesus. He was starting to get known, especially because, 2 by 2s the apostles had been sent out in his region, in that Galilee region. And he was threatened by him. And by the way, Josephus, who mentioned this like 60 years later or whatever, or 60 AD, if I'm not mistaken, he wrote about some of this, and he looked at it from the political standpoint. He was like, he felt threatened, and that's why he had John the Baptist killed. And then later he meets Jesus, by the way. But right now he didn't. He just hears about him. He thought it was John the Baptist raised from the dead. It was like a superstitious thing or something he had, or I guess he actually believed in the resurrection, just like other people did, Pharisees. I believe in it and all that. And he thought that was John the Baptist. I think he was haunted by the fact that he killed him, and he knew he shouldn't have. He knew he was a holy man. Mark says he actually listened to him a lot. We'll get into this later. He listened to him, and he was gladly hearing what he had to say, even though John the Baptist was just blasting him with truth against that he was living against God and all that. So he was intrigued by this guy. It was really interesting, this man. So anyway, so an opportunity came. It was a birthday, or the Greek word could be like it was a time of his celebration of his becoming a tetrarch. Most likely birthday, but it could be taken either or. So in the Greek, in the original language of the New Testament. So at this birthday, or at this big celebration, he decided, and Mark explains, he decided to bring his lords, a bunch of people, really high officials, his chiefs, and people, all over the place. He decided to have a big birthday party. So yeah, they celebrated birthday parties in this time. As a matter of fact, it says in the Old Testament too. But anyway, so he was having this big party. And probably near the end of it, or the climax, they were really drinking a lot, and all that celebration was going on, and laughter and partying and all. Then Herodias connived. She did this really schemed thing to try and get him. And what she did, I hate to say this is kind of horrible. It's like, ugh. What she did is she took, let me go back and explain who this is. Salome. Now, there was a Salome the first, which is way back and all. But this one was Philip. Okay, if you remember, we'll draw this guy. Philip. I keep thinking it's one eye. Philip and Herodias, in their first marriage, had a daughter, and her name was Salome. Salome. All right, so there she is right here. And evidently, this is bad. Herod the Great, no, Herod Antipas liked her or something. She was most likely really, really beautiful or something. And so now we don't know exactly how old she was at this time. There's different stories. I've heard and read that it was as young as 6 to 8 years old. Wow, that's crazy. Probably she was 12 to 14 years old. And there's a reason I say that, because actually the 12-year-old daughter that Jesus took from Jairus and raised her from the dead, that Greek word, and she was 12, it says, that Greek word is used in this story. So it's possibly she was, Salome was 12 to 14 years old. Maybe it was 16 to 18. I've read different, nobody really probably knows the exact age, but he wanted her to dance. And I think what happened is Herodias had offered her to dance in front of him and all these guys, and all. So we don't know what type of dance she did. The Bible doesn't say, but I'm going to take a guess, and it seems to be one that you shouldn't dance. And maybe who knows what her outfit was and all that. But, there is good dancing and there's bad dancing. So this little doll here, I like to say, there's bad dancing, nasty kind of dancing where you're bringing attention to yourself in the sense of look at me and look at my body and so, right here in the hip region in this area, you shouldn't be wiggling that around, if I could just say that. It's not good. And then, nowadays people are going like this, and girls are actually looking back here at their bottom trying to get attention to that. And that's not good, is it? No. So be careful. If you're a girl watching this, there's a divide. There's holy and good and godly type dancing, and there's dancing that's nasty and wiggling around, and it's kind of not good, especially when she was doing it most likely to get them to want her. That's not good. So anyway, there's a Salome dance, and I don't know what she had on, and that may have made it worse. Maybe she had little on or something, see-through stuff and all that. Not good. So she danced, and it pleased him. Ugh. And it pleased the guests too, it says in Mark. But anyway, so he said to her, you give me, now this is what Mark said, I'll give you anything you want up to half of my kingdom. By the way, that's something that happened in the past, in the Old Testament is mentioned too, and also in other writings where kings were so bewildered or seduced or whatever, like, okay, I'm just going to give you all this up to half my kingdom. That's actually what's happened before in past. We'll get into those stories later. And then so she, as a young girl, she's maybe 12 to 14, let's say, she runs back to Herodias and says, wow, guess what? He wants me to get whatever up to half of the kingdom. What do you want? Now, what do you think she said? If you said, Herodias said, this is the one thing that she wanted. She hated John so much that she said, go tell Herod Antipas that you want the head of John, the head of the Baptist. And then Salome went right back up to Herod Antipas and said that. What? A 12-year-old girl asking for the head of somebody. And he was so sorry. And Marcus says he was exceeding sorry. He did not want to do it, but he promised her in front of everyone. It was like an oath. And so because of that, it says he immediately, sent an executioner. He sent someone to take off the head of John the Baptist. How awful. But remember, there's good in the story because, John was with God right there. And he's a good example of living right and dying right. He got martyred, he got killed for righteousness, for God, for Jesus Christ and all. So that part is really good. So they took his head, put it, and she actually said she wanted it on a platter, like a plate. So they took his head. Of course, this is a skull, but his whole head was there, hair and everything. And they put it on, and she brought it and gave it to Herodias. Tradition says she spit on it and put a pin through his tongue. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get too much of it. It's like, awful. Now, what happened after that is the disciples of John heard about it, and they came and got his body. They gave him his body. and they buried him a good burial. So at least that part was good. I don't know what happened to the head, but at least that that his spirit and soul was gone, and his body is going to be resurrected someday. His bones going to be brought up and everything. So I think that's all I want to say about that story. Let me see if there's any specific thing. He took him, put him into prison. I said all that. Let's see. And she, being very instructed of her mother, give me he was sorry, the head. Nevertheless, yep, I already said all that. He was sent, and then his head was brought to church. That's awful stuff. There you go. That's it. That's the story. Just another interesting part that's not there. When Herodias wanted to marry Antipas had a wife, and from a guy from near the Macareas, Nabatea. He was a Nabatean. Do you remember that? I said that earlier, like in the last one. So you have this, and then you have this, and then you have this lake. The sea, and then you have Nabatea. His father was her father, and this is where Herod Antipas stayed most of the time. Tiberias, that's where his house was and all. So that's where she was. She kind of asked permission to go to Macareas, which is that town, and then she went to her father and escaped Herod Antipas. And then that caused Herod Antipas some real problems because he had married her. Her name is, right here, her name is Amir. I'm spelling it wrong. Amir, okay. Her name is Amir, and she went down here, and then that caused problems with Perea and Galilee, Antipas. And he actually, the father, who was the king of his area, beat Antipas in war and all that. It was just a mess. There you go. I think that covered it all. I hope you got something out of this. John the Baptist died, and they killed him for being a righteous man. And but he's to be honored. And I can't wait for meeting him, sit down and talk to him. All right. God bless you. Thanks for listening.